There is a story behind every picture, and until you are told, you can only guess. On this channel, we shall tell you everything you need to know concerning all historic and iconic pictures, the good, the bad and the ugly. But before we get into it, let's hear what Mr. Ballin wants us to do with the like button.
Please bring the like button to Komodo Island to go apple picking in the restricted section and secretly tape a stake to the back of their shirt. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories.
In 1969, Elvis performed at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. Elvis was naturally anxious upon his return to Vegas after failing there 13 years earlier. But he had nothing to worry about. He sang beautifully, and his audience loved him. More than 100,000 people attended the series of concerts, which set house records and brought in $1.5 million. He reportedly made $100,000 per week. Elvis returned to Las Vegas in late 1969, playing from July to August, and then returning in January 1970. While he played all over the country in the 70s, it was Las Vegas that would forever become associated with this period of his life. The common pattern was to play Vegas for a series of concerts every January, often returning later in the year for another engagement and visiting other cities all over the country in between. The historic idea for Elvis's return to Las Vegas was negotiated by Colonel Tom Parker and Alex Shufay, president of the International Hotel, owned by Kurt Kerkorian. The colonel took notes on the tablecloth as they hammered out a deal, including a proviso that if Shufay left the hotel, the contract could be renegotiated. In 1971, Kerkorian sold the hotel to Baron Hilton, whereupon Shufay retired, and veteran hotel executive Henry Lewin took over. Soon after, Lewin, a legendarily tough negotiator himself, was visited by the colonel, toting the old tablecloth with, among other things, the scribbled contract renegotiation clause. Suffice it to say, Lewin made a new deal. The new live shows were about the king himself. In other words, they were about glitter and glitz as well as musicianship. They were choreographed around his image. His arrival on the stage was dramatized, as was his departure. Elvis worked each crowd as if it would be his last. No longer the supercharged hillbilly cat, Elvis was now a consummate professional, smooth, powerful, and passionate, already seeming more myth than man. Elvis had an intuitive feeling for what his audience wanted to hear. The order of the songs was strictly Elvis's choice, though he welcomed suggestions from his musicians. There were surprisingly few special effects and little emphasis on production values. Elvis was the show. On June 20, 1967, boxing legend Muhammad Ali was convicted for refusing the draft for the Vietnam War in Houston, Texas. Ali had been a vocal opponent of the U.S. war, expressing his views by saying, "Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs?" In an attempt to suppress the growing resistance to the war, Ali was given the maximum sentence of 5 years imprisonment and a $10,000 fine. However, these efforts proved unsuccessful as the anti-war movement continued to gain momentum. Despite the Nation of Islam starting to distance themselves from Ali, demonstrations in support of him took place worldwide, from Egypt to Guyana, London to Ghana. 4 years later, the Supreme Court overturned his conviction. Ali remained steadfast in his convictions, stating, "I wasn't trying to be a leader. I just wanted to be free. And I made a stand all people, not just black people, should have thought about making because it wasn't just black people being drafted. The government had a system where the rich man's son went to college, and the poor man's son went to war. Then, after the rich man's son got out of college, he did other things to keep him out of the army until he was too old to be drafted." The last American slave ship arrived in Mobile, Alabama, in 1860, despite the illegal importation of slaves. On board were approximately 160 West African individuals who had been captured and enslaved. One of the captives, named Cudjoe Lewis, was acutely aware of the potential erasure of his birth culture as he toiled in this new land. However, when he eventually gained his freedom, Lewis took action to preserve his heritage. Using the money he had earned, Cudjoe Lewis purchased 2 acres of land and established a self-sufficient community for the survivors of the last slave ship. This community, known to outsiders as Africatown, aimed to recreate aspects of the West African home from which they had been forcibly removed. Lewis wanted to ensure that extended families could live together, conversations could be held in regional languages, and traditions that might otherwise have been lost in America could be maintained. Today, Africatown still exists as a community and continues to house the descendants of the individuals who were brought to America on the nation's last slave ship. It stands as a testament to the resilience and determination of those who fought to preserve their heritage and maintain a sense of cultural identity in the face of tremendous adversity. Thanks for watching. If you know more about any of these stories, do share in the comments section and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.